in place. Statement, the Home Secretary.
With permission, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Order. Let's just make clear from the beginning, this is a very serious statement on a serious matter that is affecting a lot of people, and the Home Secretary will be heard with dignity. Home Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With permission, I would like to make a statement about asylum processing at Manston and the incident in Dover yesterday. At around 11:20 a.m. on Sunday, police were called to Western Jetfoil. Officers established that 2 to 3 incendiary devices had been thrown at the Home Office premises. The suspect was identified, quickly located at a nearby petrol station, and confirmed dead. The Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit attended to ensure there were no further threats. Kent Police are not currently treating this as a terrorist incident. Fortunately, there were only 2 minor injuries, but this is a shocking incident, and my thoughts are with all of those who are affected. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have received regular updates from the police. While I understand the desire for answers, investigators must have the necessary space to work. I know the whole House will join me in paying tribute to everyone involved in the response, including the emergency services, military, border force, immigration enforcement, and the asylum intake unit. Madam Deputy Speaker, my priority remains the safety and the well-being of our teams and contractors, as well as the people in our care. Several hundred migrants were relocated to Manston yesterday to ensure their safety. Western Jetfoil is now fully operational again. I can also inform the House that my right honourable friend, the Minister for Immigration, visited the Manston site yesterday, and that I will visit shortly. My right honourable friend was reassured by the dedication of staff as they work to make this site safe and secure while suitable onward accommodation is found. As members will be aware, we need to meet our statutory duties around detention and also fulfil legal duties to provide accommodation for those who would otherwise be destitute. We also have a duty to the wider public to ensure that anyone who has entered our country illegally undergoes essential security checks and is not immediately free to wander around local communities with no fixed abode. When we face so many arrivals so quickly, it is practically impossible to procure over 1,000 beds at such short notice. Consequently, we have recently expanded the site and are working tirelessly to improve facilities. There are, of course, competing and heavy demands on housing stock, including for Ukrainians, Afghans, and social housing. We are negotiating with accommodation providers. I continue to look at all available options to overcome the challenges we face with supply. This is an urgent matter, Madam Deputy Speaker, which I will continue to oversee personally. I will now turn to our immigration and asylum system more widely. Let me be clear. This is a global migration crisis. We have seen an unprecedented number of attempts to illegally cross the channel in small boats. Some 40,000 people have crossed this year alone, more than double the number of arrivals by the same point last year. Not only is it unnecessary, because many have come from another safe country, it is lethally dangerous. We must stop it. It is vital that we dismantle the international crime gangs behind this phenomenon. Cooperation with the French has stopped over 29,000 illegal crossings since the start of the year, twice as many as last year, and destroyed over 1,000 boats. and our UK-France Joint Intelligence Cell has dismantled 55 organised crime groups since it was established in 2020. The National Crime Agency is at the forefront of this fight. Indeed, NCA officers recently joined what is believed to be the biggest ever international operation targeting smuggling networks. This year has seen a surge in the number of Albanian arrivals, Madam Deputy Speaker, many of them, I'm afraid to say, abusing our modern slavery laws. We are working to ensure Albanian cases are processed and individuals are removed as swiftly as possible, sometimes within days. The Rwanda Partnership will further disrupt the business model of the smuggling gangs and deter migrants from putting their lives at risk. I'm committed to making that partnership work. Labour want to cancel it. While we will continue to support the vulnerable via safe and legal routes, people coming here illegally from safe countries are not welcome and should not expect to stay. Where it is necessary to change the law, we will not hesitate to do so. I share the sentiment that has been expressed by members from across the House who want to see cases in the UK dealt with swiftly. Our asylum transformation programme will help bring down the backlog. It is already having an impact. A pilot in Leeds reduced interview times by over a third and has seen productivity almost double. We are also determined to address the wholly unacceptable situation, which has left taxpayers with a bill of £6.8 million a day for hotel accommodation. And let me set out to the House a situation that I found when I arrived as Home Secretary in September at the Home Office. I was appalled to learn that there were over 35,000 migrants staying in hotel accommodation around the country at exorbitant cost to the taxpayer. I instigated an urgent review.
Home Secretary.
I pushed officials to identify accommodation options which would be more cost-effective and delivered swiftly while meeting our legal obligations to migrants. I've held regular operational meetings with frontline officials and have been energetically seeking alternative sites. But I have to be honest, this takes time and there are many hurdles. I foresaw the concerns at Manston in September and deployed additional resource and personnel to deliver a rapid increase in emergency accommodation. To be clear, like the majority of the British people, I am very concerned about hotels, but I've never blocked their usage. Indeed, since I took over, 12,000 people have arrived, 9,500 people have been transferred out of Manston or Western Jetfoil, many of them into hotels. And I've never ignored legal advice. As a former Attorney General, I know the importance of taking legal advice into account. At every point, Madam Deputy Speaker, I have worked hard to find alternative accommodation to relieve the pressure at Manston. What I have refused to do is to prematurely release thousands of people into local communities without having anywhere for them to stay. That is not just the wrong thing to do, Madam Deputy Speaker, that would be the worst thing to do. For the local community in Kent, for the safety of those under our care, and for the integrity of our borders. The government is resolute in our determination to make illegal entry to the UK unviable. It is unnecessary, lethally dangerous, unfair on migrants who play by the rules, and unfair on the law-abiding, patriotic majority of British people. It is also ruinously expensive, and it makes all of us less safe. Madam Deputy Speaker, as Home Secretary, I have a plan to bring about the change that is so urgently needed to deliver an immigration system that works in the interests of the British people. And I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I thank the Home Secretary for her statement. Yesterday's petrol bomb attack on the Western Jetfoil Centre was truly appalling. I'm sure the whole House will condemn it in the strongest possible terms. And I echo the Home Secretary's tribute to the emergency services and Border Force staff who responded. But I must ask her, can she tell me whether counter-terror police and counter-extremism units are involved in the investigation? It doesn't make sense for them not to be. Why are they not? Turning to the dreadful conditions at Manston, 4,000 people are now on a site designed to accommodate 1,600 people, with some families there for weeks. Conditions that have been described as inhumane, with risks of fire, disorder and infection. There are confirmed diphtheria outbreaks, reports of scabies and MRSA outbreaks, also reports of outbreaks of violence and untrained staff. She said nothing about what she was doing to address those immediate public health crises and also the issues for untrained staff. Behind these are deeper failures in the government's policies on asylum and channel crossings. Decision-making has collapsed. The Home Office took just 14,000 initial asylum decisions in the last 12 months, compared to 28,000 6 years ago. 96% of the small boat arrivals last year have still not had a decision, and initial decisions alone are taking more than 400 days on this Conservative government's watch. Can she confirm that the Nationalities Borders Bill and changes to immigration rules have in fact added further bureaucracy and delays, leading to tens of thousands more people waiting in asylum accommodation and more than £100 million extra on asylum accommodation bills because their policies are pushing up the use of hotels and the increase in delays? There's also been a total failure to prevent a huge proliferation of gangs in the Channel. Why has the Home Secretary refused our calls for a major new National Crime Agency unit with hundreds of additional specialist officers to work with Europol and others to crack down on the gangs, as well as the urgent work needed with France to get a proper agreement in place? And can she also confirm on the Rwanda plan that she has spent an extra £20 million on top of the £120 million already spent on a policy that she has herself described as failing and that her officials have described as unenforceable and with a high risk of fraud? And isn't it now time to drop this unethical and unworkable scheme and put the money into tackling the backlogs and tackling the criminal gangs instead? And let me ask her about her own decisions, which are there are very serious allegations now being reported that the Home Secretary was warned by officials and other ministers she was acting outside the law by failing to provide alternative accommodation. Can she confirm that she turned down contingency plans that she was offered that would have reduced overcrowding, as the reports say? There are also legal obligations, including under the 1999 Act and the 2018 regulations. Can she confirm she was advised repeatedly that she was breaking the law by failing to agree to these plans? One of these meetings on Manston was on the 19th of October. Can she confirm she refused these proposals on that date? It was the same day that she broke sections 2.3 and sections 1.4 of the ministerial code. So can she confirm, or can she tell us whether in fact she breached the ministerial code, which provides for ministers abiding by the law? Did she breach the ministerial code 3 times in a single day? And how is anyone supposed to have confidence in her as a Home Secretary with these serious issues? She refers in her statement to security checks. These are very important, but her statement is undermined by her own disregard for security. Her letter today makes clear that the incident over which she resigned was not a one-off, and contrary to her previous claims to have reported the breach rapidly as soon as she realised, she instead had to be challenged several times by one of her colleagues. She has also not answered the crucial questions about security breaches while she was Attorney General. Can she tell us whether she was involved in a leak to the Telegraph, reported in the Telegraph on the 21st of January, about information about Attorney General action on a case involving the security service? Has she sent any other government documents by WhatsApp, Telegram or other social media? And given that it's been less than a week since she was reappointed, and less than a fortnight since she was first forced to resign for breaching the ministerial code, and every day since her reappointment, there have been more stories about possible security or ministerial code breaches. How is anybody supposed to have confidence in her, given the serious responsibilities of the Home Secretary to stand up for our national security, for security standards, and for public safety? The Prime Minister promised that this would be a government of integrity, of professionalism, and of accountability. Isn't the Home Secretary letting everyone down and failing on all of these counts?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To pick up on some of the specific points that the Honourable Lady mentions, I'm not going to comment on any details relating to this specific case or the individual under consideration. But there has been clear work afoot with the NCA and all partners to try and tackle the problem of illegal migration. I'm very encouraged by the relationship that we have built with the French, and I'm grateful to the French authorities for their real commitment and work on tackling this problem. But it's absolutely clear that, as I made clear in my statement, that on no occasion did I block hotels or veto advice to procure extra and emergency accommodation. Actually, the data and the facts are that on my watch, since the 6th of September, over 30 new hotels were agreed, which would provide over 4,500 additional hotel bed spaces, which will be brought into use. Since the start of October, over 13 new hotels will provide over 1,800 additional hotel bed spaces. So, and also since the 6th of September, 9,000 migrants have left Manston, many of them heading towards hotel accommodation. Those are the facts. I encourage the Right Honourable Lady to stick to the facts and not fantasy. Madam Deputy Speaker, however, she raises some other points, and I would just like to say this, that my letter to the Home Affairs Select Committee sent today addresses all of the matters that she has just raised transparently and comprehensively. I've been clear that I made an error of judgment. I apologised for that error. I took responsibility for it, and I resigned. But, Madam Deputy Speaker,
does the House want to hear what the Home Secretary has to say? Home Secretary.
I apologise for the error. I took responsibility, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I resigned for the error. But let's be clear about what's really going on here, Madam Deputy Speaker. The British people deserve to know which party is serious about stopping the invasion on our southern coast and which party is not. Some 40,000 people have arrived on the south coast this year alone, many of them facilitated by criminal gangs, some of them actual members of criminal gangs. So let's stop pretending that they are all refugees in distress. The whole country knows that that is not true. And it's only the honourable members opposite who pretend otherwise. Madam Deputy Speaker, we need to be straight with the public. The system is broken. Illegal migration is out of control, and too many people are more interested in playing political parlour games, covering up the truth, than solving the problem. I, Madam Deputy Speaker, am utterly serious about ending the scourge of illegal migration, and I am determined to do whatever it takes to break the criminal gangs and fix our hopelessly lax asylum system. That, Madam Deputy Speaker, is why I am in government. And that is why there are some people who would prefer to be rid of me. Well,
order. I should just point out that I can hear who's making the noise, and it'll be a long time before they're called to ask a question. Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, let them try. I know that I speak for the decent, law-abiding, patriotic majority of British people from every background that wants safe and secure borders. Labour is running scared that this party might just deliver them.
Sir Roger Gale.
Madam Deputy Speaker, will you allow me first to express my condolences to the families of those affected by the incident at Dover, and particularly the family of the man who was responsible, who had very severe mental health difficulties. I think our thoughts ought to be with all of them. Madam Deputy Speaker, can I also thank my right honourable friend, the Minister of State, for taking the trouble and the time to come yesterday to see the facilities at Manston for himself and to greatly understand the problems that we've been facing. And can I thank the staff at Manston for the incredible dedication that they've been showing under very difficult circumstances. They are doing a superb job, and I hope everybody understands that. Madam Deputy Speaker, the facility at Manston, the asylum processing facility, was opened in January to take 1,500 people and to process them daily in not more than 48 hours, but mainly in 24 hours. That facility operated absolutely magnificently and very efficiently indeed until 5 weeks ago, when I'm afraid the Home Secretary took the policy decision not to commission further accommodation. And it is that that has led to the crisis at Manston. Will my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, now give the House an assurance, first, that the adequate accommodation will be provided to enable the Manston facility to return to its previous work? Will she honour the undertaking given by the Right Honourable Lady, the member for Witham, and my honourable friend, the member for Corby, who have indicated that this would be a temporary facility handling only 1,500 people per day, and that it would not be a permanent residence? And will she give a further undertaking that under no circumstances will Manston be turned into a permanent refugee camp?
Yeah.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his commitment to safeguarding the people who are at Manston and representing his local constituents in the area. And I was very pleased to meet with him a few weeks ago to hear from him about the situation at Manston. As I said, I just must gently correct him, however. On no occasion have I blocked the procurement of hotels or alternative accommodation to ease the pressure on Manston. I'm afraid that simply isn't true. And I'll repeat it again, but since September the 6th, when I was appointed, over 30 new hotels have been agreed to. They would provide over 4,500 additional hotel bed spaces, many of those available to the people in Manston. Also, since the 6th of September, over 9,000 people have left Manston, many of those heading towards hotels. So on no occasion have I blocked the use of hotels. And I would just gently refer members of the House who seem to be labouring under that misapprehension to the Home Affairs Select Committee session last week, where officials and the various frontline professionals who've been working with me on this issue confirm that we've been working energetically to procure alternative accommodation urgently for several weeks now. There are procedural and resource difficulties and challenges in doing that quickly. I would very much like to get alternative accommodation delivered more quickly, but we are working at pace to deliver contingency accommodation to deal with this acute problem.
Stuart MacDonald.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Home Secretary for her statement, and I join the whole House in condemning the frightening attack at Western Jetfoil, in sending our sympathy to all those who were impacted, and indeed our thanks to all who responded so professionally. But, Madam Speaker, responsibility for the disaster and dysfunction at Manston and the unlawful detention conditions there lies squarely with the Home Secretary herself and her predecessors. She and they knew what was happening, including the numbers arriving, and she was provided with advice that, by all accounts, she did not act on. Now, she's very carefully said that she did not block hotel use, but did she at any point avoid supporting new procurement? And if not, why is it that we heard that her successor, or predecessor, depending on which way you look at it, had to intervene? Ultimately, Madam Speaker, what was a functioning facility in the summer is now totally unsafe, and that was on her watch. Looking to the future, what now? Unfortunately, the Home Secretary offers only the same old failed sound bites, discredited policies and nasty rhetoric. What we need is an expansion of safe legal routes, at a minimum reversing the loss of the routes under the Dublin Convention. Instead of £120 million in our disgraceful Rwanda dream, that could have trebled the number of asylum caseworkers working to clear the backlog. And why not fast-forward claims, for example, from the 16,000 Syrians and Afghans, half of whom have been waiting for over 6 months? Make decisions on their cases quickly. 95% and more will get asylum. They can move on and we can free up accommodation. Madam Speaker, on her letter today, last week the Home Secretary resigned, claiming she accepted responsibility, but the facts suggest that she tried to dodge it but got caught. Why else did she find time to request the accidental email recipient was to delete and forget, yet only notified senior officials and the Prime Minister after being confronted? These excuses will not wash. Ultimately, how can one so-called misjudgment last week be a resignation offence, and yet she can stay this week after admitting 6 of the very same misjudgments? She said no documents were top secret, but how many were marked official and sensitive? Did she do similar as Attorney General? How do we know? Madam Speaker, her return so quickly after an admitted ministerial code breach is a farce. It reflects poorly on her and poorly on the Prime Minister. Both should think again so that someone else can get on with the real work.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I refer the honourable gentleman to the letter that I sent today to the chairman of the Home Affairs Select Committee. I've been upfront about the details of my diary on the 19th of October, cooperative with any review that's taken place. I've apologised, I've taken responsibility, and that's why I resigned. I hope the House will see that I'm willing to apologise without hesitation for what I've done and any mistakes that I've made. But what I will not do, under any circumstances, is apologise for things that I haven't done. It's been said that I sent a top secret document. That's wrong. It's been said that I sent a document about cybersecurity. That's wrong. It's been said that I sent a document about the intelligence agencies that would compromise national security. And it's wrong, wrong, wrong. Madam Deputy Speaker, what is wrong is that, and worrying, is that without compunction, these assertions have been repeated as facts by politicians and journalists. And I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to clarify the record today.
Natalie Elphicke.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to put on record my thanks to all of the first responders to the horrific incidents that happened at Dover yesterday. Constituents working at the Dover facility have raised concerns about the current safety at the site. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that this type of facility has no place in a busy open port like Dover? And can she look at moving it to a more appropriate, secure location immediately? And does she also agree that we cannot keep doing more of the same, paying millions of pounds to the French, but seeing ever-increasing numbers of illegal arrivals? It is now time for a new approach for the French, to stop the boats leaving the French beaches, a joint channel security zone, to tackle this issue and bring an end to this illegal immigration activity once and for all.
Well, I want to thank my honourable friend for her indefatigable campaigning on this issue, and I've been very grateful to her for her direct input on this issue. This is incredibly difficult. I don't want to sugarcoat the problem. There are incredibly multifaceted challenges that we have to deal with. And when it comes to Manston, like her, I'm very concerned about the conditions, and I have been so for several weeks. That's why I've taken urgent action to stand up an operational team to increase the emergency accommodation on the site on a temporary and emergency basis. I was not willing to release hundreds of migrants into the local community. I won't do that. I will do everything I can to find cost-effective and practical alternatives. We need to find many more sites for accommodation and beds. We are looking at all instances, whether that is hotels, whether that's land owned by other agencies, for example, MOD or other government departments, looking at other dispersal around the country. We have to look exhaustively, but it isn't easy.
Dame Diana Johnson.
Deputy Speaker, and can I welcome the Home Secretary to her place? And I look forward to her attending at the Home Affairs Select Committee on the 23rd of November, as we haven't seen a Home Secretary since February of this year. The Home Affairs Select Committee heard evidence last week that Manston was at breaking point. We were also told by the Home Office's Director General for Customer Services that 3 hotels were approved 1 week ago when the Right Honourable Member for Welwyn Hatfield was the then Home Secretary. So can this Home Secretary confirm exactly how many hotels or alternative accommodation options she was personally invited by her officials to approve for use during her first tenure as Home Secretary, and how many hotels or alternative accommodation options she actually did grant approval and permission for during her time? And finally, perhaps the Home Secretary might wish to join the Home Affairs Select Committee when we visit Manston again for the second time this week.
Well, I read with interest the session that the Honourable Lady conducted last week at her Select Committee, and I just want to put on record my immense thanks to the officials. The officials that you heard evidence from are brilliant and simply the best in the business, and they work day in, day out to try and get the best service. And I note from questions 67 to 78 approximately, there was a lot of discussion about my involvement and my grip of the situation, and I encourage all members to read that section of the transcript, which confirms on the record by officials with whom I've been working directly that there has been active procurement of hotels. There's been a huge amount of work which has been put on. How many? I will repeat myself again. Since the 6th of September, over 30 new hotels have been agreed, providing over 4,500 additional hotel bed spaces. That's been under my watch. That's been when I've been in charge of the Home Office. And I'm very grateful to all those officials. And I must put on record my thanks to the now departed Minister Purseglove, who has been instrumental in assisting in dealing with this problem.
Craig McKinley.
My right honourable friend mentioned Albanians in her statement. I hear that 2/3 of those at Manston are Albanians. Does she have an absolute figure for that? But is my right honourable friend aware that in Germany and Sweden, that work to the same immigration accords as we do, they allow 0 applicants from Albania? Surely it stands to reason that an EU applicant country, a NATO country, a country that's in the Council of Europe and is patently not a war zone, we should not be accepting refugee status and claims from such a country. What is she going to do about that aspect of this problem?
Well, my honourable friend again raised a very important feature which has emerged over the last 6 to 9 months about the prominence of Albanian migrants arriving on our shores. And he's right. Albania is not a war-torn country. And it is very difficult to see how claims for asylum really can be legitimate claims for asylum. I would also note that we see a large number of Albanian migrants arriving here and claiming to be victims of modern slavery. Again, I really am circumspect of those claims because Albania, of course, is a signatory to the European Convention Against Trafficking, the original convention that underlies our modern slavery laws. And actually, if those people are genuinely modern slavery victims, they should be claiming that protection in Albania.
Diane Abbott.
The Home Secretary will be aware that one of the problems with the asylum system is the unacceptably long time it takes to process claims. The Home Affairs Select Committee took evidence from the Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, and he told us that currently caseworkers, decision makers, are making 1.3 decisions a week. The Leeds pilot, which is referred to, has put the numbers of decisions up to 2.7 decisions a week. Doesn't the Home Secretary understand that this is far too slow? And what is she going to do about it? And isn't it the case that if she spent less time playing to the gallery on immigration and more time dealing with the practical problems, this would be to the benefit of the taxpayer, the Home Office staff that work so hard, and to the asylum seekers themselves?
It's not often I say this, Madam Deputy, but I do actually agree with a lot of what the Right Honourable Lady has just said. She is right. And when I arrived at the Home Office in September, I was very dismayed to find that, as was set out at the Select Committee last week, only 4% of those claims waiting in the system have been processed so far. So we have a very slow-moving system. That is unacceptable, and that is a big part of the problem. And part of our plan to solve the problem is to speed up asylum processing. We're putting more resources behind it. We're putting more technology behind it. We're trying to identify how we can be more efficient. But yes, it's a big feature which is clogging up the system, and we see the pressure playing out at Manston.
Lawson.
Clearly, the situation at Manston's become unsustainable because of the record numbers coming across the channel. 40,000, and November last year was the highest month, so we haven't seen the end of it. And of course, as my honourable friend from Planet South has said, a record number of Albanians, 12,000, up from just 50 2 years ago. So following on from his question, what exactly is the arrangement with the Albanian government about returns? What arrangements is she looking at to fast-track Albanians, potentially in separate processing centres, helped by those Albanian officials we've allowed to come here to assist? How many Albanians have so far been returned in the last 12 months? How many of those Albanians have taken voluntary return payments to return? And of those, how many of them have actually come back to the UK again?
Well, again, my right honourable friend is right to mention the returns agreement, and we really want to maximise the deployment of the terms of that agreement. I think that's a brilliant starting point for trying to accelerate some of the processing and ultimately the removals of Albanian nationals. Albanian nationals are received in the same way as other small boat arrivals, and however, due to the excellent relationship built with my Albanian counterpart, we are able to expedite removal of Albanians who have no reason to be in the UK. We want to maximise that, we want to push forward with that and faster.
Alistair Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to read to the Home Secretary a text message that a colleague of mine received this afternoon from an immigration expert. He says, "Just had a call with Ukraine that has reduced our team to tears. People are facing losing their lives in Kyiv or watching their children freeze in the countryside purely because of delays in processing their visas. UK Home Office, paper pushing and unnecessary waits are costing people their lives in Ukraine." Ukraine, Madam Deputy Speaker, not Albania, Ukraine. Is that what the Home Secretary means when she says that this is a government taking asylum seriously?
Home Secretary.
Well, I do dispute his version of events with respect. Since 2015, Madam Deputy Speaker, the UK has offered a place to over 380,000 men, women and children seeking safety, including those from Hong Kong, Syria, Afghanistan and Ukraine, as well as many family members of refugees.
John Redwood.
I strongly support all that the Home Secretary said in her opening statement. She spoke for the nation in saying we need to control this problem, and she spoke for all those caught up in these tragic events. So I hope that all men and women of goodwill will get behind her and that the Home Office will fully support her in making sure we can speed up processing and in returning all those illegal economic migrants to the safe countries they came from.
Secretary.
My right honourable friend speaks a lot of sense, as always. And he's right. The British people have had enough of an out-of-control borders system. And it's incumbent on this government, and I know for a fact that this Prime Minister takes this issue extremely seriously, and I know that he will leave no stone unturned until the problem is fixed.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. There is nothing patriotic about making children suffer, but that is exactly what is happening as a direct result of this Home Secretary's failure to get to grips with processing asylum. She talks as if the hotels are somehow a better option. In my constituency, there is one with 150 children in, squeezed alongside another 350 adults, 7 or 8 to a room. No notice to the local authority they would be placed there. No cooking facilities. No school places for these primary school-aged children. No clothes for most of them, especially for the winter weather. No play facilities if they are allowed out at all of these prisons. No safeguarding as far as any of us can see. If the Home Secretary is so confident that this is meeting her duty of care on behalf of this country, then will she publish the contract requirements for how children are housed in hotels and the precise details of the sorts of services they should expect and that we should be proud of as a country dealing with those fleeing asylum?
Home Secretary.
Well, we are currently accommodating unaccompanied asylum-seeking children in hotels, with hotels with a maximum occupancy of 353, and there is additional accommodation available coming on stream. But what I would just say to the honourable lady is this: I think it's a fallacy to suggest that we're somehow cutting corners. When I've arrived at the Home Office, I've been frankly very dismayed and appalled to find that we're spending on average £150 per person per night to accommodate people in hotels. By my standard, that's quite a nice hotel. And upon my review and closer scrutiny of how that decision-making was taking place, I identified several 4-star hotels around the country being procured for this purpose. For me, that's not an acceptable use of taxpayers' money.
Jane Hunt.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Unsolicited economic migration to the UK via illegal trafficking must be stopped. We must use our limited resources to support valid asylum cases that have not come from a safe country. What steps is the Home Office taking to return illegal immigrants now to their home countries in the cases of countries who will accept them?
Home Secretary.
Well, we take removals very importantly, and actually part of the plan to solve this is actually to try and accelerate the turnaround and the processing of people who are arriving illegally. We've had some success recently in removing people back to Albania within quite a short period of time, but we need to go further and faster.
Joanna Cherry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I just gently remind the Home Secretary that it is not illegal to seek asylum? What is illegal is to detain people without a proper basis in law. So can she confirm that she has ignored legal advice that keeping these asylum seekers at Manston for more than 24 hours could be illegal detention? And can she also tell us whether she's been advised that what's happening at Manston may amount to unlawful deprivation of liberty in terms of Article 5 of the ECHR, and also inhuman and degrading treatment in terms of Article 3 ECHR? Now, despite the Home Secretary's best efforts, we're still bound to comply with the Convention by virtue of our domestic law. So what's she going to do about all of this? And even if she doesn't care about the human rights of the people detained at Manston, does she understand that her failure to obey the law here may end up costing the taxpayers vast amounts of money in terms of court fees and damages?
Well, I confirm that I have not and ever ignored legal advice. The Law Officers Convention, which I still take very seriously, means I won't comment on the contents of legal advice that I may have seen. But what I will say is this: I am not prepared to release migrants prematurely into the local community in Kent to no fixed abode. That's an unacceptable option to me.
Nick Fletcher.
In the Secretary of State's statement, she spoke of the successes of the UK-French joint alliance style, stopping 29,000 illegal immigrants crossing. What are her thoughts on doubling these resources and finally eliminating these dangerous crossings?
Part of our plan
Secretary.
to tackle this issue is about increasing our resources and our manpower to intercept and detect the organised criminal gangs upstream. That's what part of the work with the French entails, and that's why I was very encouraged by discussions I've had with my French counterpart, Minister Darmanin, about how we can work better and more closely together with our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement agencies jointly upstream to try and intercept early on.
Ben Bradshaw.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Is it still explained to incoming ministers, as it was to me more than 21 years ago, how easily one's mobile phone can be compromised by organised criminals and hostile foreign powers? If so, how was her mobile phone and the mobile phone of the former Prime Minister, the member for South West Norfolk, compromised in these security breaches?
Home Secretary.
Well, I've set out the details in the letter of today, but I've made it clear that there was no issue about a compromise to national security.
Sir Desmond Swain.
Can I thank her for her dedication and the work that she is doing? What are the prospects of securing an alternative airline carrier to make the Rwanda plan a reality?
Home Secretary.
I'm very committed to delivering the Rwanda plan. That took a huge amount of work and commitment by the Right Honourable, my Right Honourable friend, the member for Witham, and the former Prime Minister, the member for Uxbridge. And I think that it is incredibly crucial to our multifaceted approach to this problem. If you look at the Australian experience of tackling a similar issue, they will say that one very powerful tool they had in tackling the problem was the moment they were able to return people or move them out of the territory to Papua New Guinea or Nauru. It had a massive deterrent effect, and that's what we want to deploy.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The conditions at Manston are clearly unsafe and inhumane, and we know, obviously, the suffering that people have experienced there. After 12 years of shameful watch of this government. However, we also do understand the lack of accommodation across the country, and that's why I asked the Home Secretary why she won't open up a Homes for Refugee scheme so people in our communities can support people properly within our own communities.
Yes. Home Secretary.
Well, whilst the issue at Manston is indisputably concerning, I don't want us to create alarm unnecessarily. So when she talks about the language that she uses, I do gently urge her not to use inflammatory language. We are aware, for example, we are aware of a very small number of cases of diphtheria reported at Manston, but there are very good medical facilities there. All protocols have been followed. People are being fed, they are being clothed, they are being sheltered. There are very high numbers at Manston, unprecedented numbers. We are working at pace to alleviate that pressure and getting people out. We anticipate, hopefully, 300 people leaving this evening and so on throughout the week. We are working urgently to solve the problem.